Good evening, everybody. I'd like to welcome you to tonight's City of Columbus Common Council Committee of the Whole meeting. It is Wednesday, December 27th, 6:30 p.m. And if I could please have a roll call.
Finkler.
Here.
Gray.
Present.
Hammer.
Here.
Moda.
Present.
Reed. Here. Relke.
Present.
Steiner.
Here.
I acknowledge this meeting was posted and noticed according to law.
Thank you. And if you would please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The first item on the agenda tonight is to approve tonight's agenda. I'm looking for a motion as such.
Motive will make a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
Steiner can second.
Thank you. I have a motion from Alder Motive and a second from Alder Steiner. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, then the agenda is approved. At this time, I'm opening the floor for citizen comments. Do we have anybody signed up on the forum? Okay. Included in your package tonight, you'll find department reports for DPW, fire, library, police, treasurer, and wastewater treatment plant. And next on the agenda is to convene to close session per state statute 19.851E to deliberate or negotiate the purchase of public properties, the investment of public funds, or conducting other public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons requires a closed session, specifically to discuss potential acquisition of parcels for Highway 73 project in the city of Columbus. And I will take a motion to convene closed session.
Alder Gray moves to convene to close session per 19.851E.
Motive seconds.
Okay, I have a motion from Alder Gray and a second from Alder Motive. Any discussion?
I actually have a question. I had a lot of constituents bring up to me and ask why this is going to closed session if it's a presentation. So I was hoping that a little bit more explanation could be given before we go to closed session, so it is clear why we are going to closed session. I do understand that we haven't had any presentations on the Highway 73 project, and folks are a little in the dark on what's even happening and what's going on.
Go ahead, Paul.
Be happy to. So this is not, well, part of what is going to happen in closed session is a presentation, but also part of what is going to happen in closed session tonight is the beginning of laying the framework for the negotiations that the city may need to undertake with the various landowners, because my understanding is part of the conversation tonight is going to focus on making offers to quote-unquote purchase easements, temporary easements, permanent easements, and in certain situations, acquisitions of small strips of land. And in doing that, there is a process that the city and the Department of Transportation have to go through in order to come up with the numbers. And then those numbers have to be applied to the individual landowners. And then also part of what will be discussed is parameters for directing the representative for the city to make offers to certain landowners as we go forward. So it clearly falls within the negotiation of and purchasing of investing of public funds, purchasing of public properties, that exception.
Even the presentation part? Just want to make sure this is clear for everybody.
Yes, well, my understanding is that the entire presentation folds into here's the numbers and here's how we got here and here's where we're going. So yes.
Okay.
Any other questions? Could I have a roll call?
Reed. Aye. Gray.
Aye.
Relke.
Aye.
Motive.
Aye.
Steiner.
Aye.
Finkler.
Aye.
Hammer.
Aye.
Okay, we are in closed session. We will reconvene to open session to adjourn tonight. Thank you very much.
Susan, do you want this so you can just send it to everybody? And then they've got it if they want it. If they don't, they can delete it.
Okay. Good. All right, good evening, everybody, and welcome to the rescheduled regular meeting of the Columbus Common Council. And with that, could we have a roll call, please?
Finkler.
Here.
Gray.
Present.
Hammer.
Here.
Moda.
Present.
Reed.
Here.
Relke.
Present.
Steiner.
Here.
I acknowledge this meeting was posted and noticed according to law.
Okay, thank you. And with that, I would entertain a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
Alder Rolke will move to approve tonight's agenda.
Gray seconds.
A motion by Alder Rolke and a second by Alder Gray to approve tonight's agenda. Any discussion on that? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Agenda approved. Correspondence or communications regarding this session here? There wasn't anything on before, but if anybody wanted to speak. Okay, hearing none, then we will move on to new business, and that would be to approve the minutes of the December 5th, 2023 meeting.
Alder Gray moves to approve the minutes from 12/5/23.
Steiner can second.
Okay, a motion by Alder Gray and a second by Alder Steiner to approve the minutes of 12/5/23. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes approved. And now on to item 2, and that is to take action on the sales study and nominal report for Highway 73 project.
Here we are. Alder Motif would like to make a motion to approve the sales study, the nominal report, and to give authority to the real estate acquisition specialist to negotiate as per our discussion in closed session, and to authorize the city administrator to sign all documents pertaining to negotiation and sale.
Gray will second.
A motion by Alder Motif and a second by Alder Gray to to approve the sales study nominal report for Highway 73 as stated. Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Moda.
Aye.
Reed.
Aye.
Steiner.
Aye.
Gray.
Aye.
Finkler.
Aye.
Relke.
Aye.
Okay, thank you, and thank you, Terry. Then it would entertain a motion to approve the claims in the amount of $314,809.12.
Alder Gray moves to approve the claims in the amount of $314,809.12.
Alder Finkler seconds.
Okay, motion by Alder Gray and a second by Alder Finkler to pay the claims. Any discussion on this item? Hearing none, roll call.
Finkler.
Aye.
Gray.
Aye.
Reed.
Aye.
Relke.
Aye.
Steiner.
Aye.
Moda.
Nay.
Okay, then the only item that, for a comment that I would like to make as mayor is that all of you have received in the mail, people that are listening online, your information from LRS, which is the city's new trash and recycling services. Our media person, David Bennett, will be having it posted on the city's website as well. I know there was a lot of discussion or feedback from people that looks like they have to pay for all their bulk pickup. Read your information on the packet. You get 2 bulk items per month for 12 months. So that's a total of 24 items. Anything above and beyond that, yes, then you do pay for that. But again, you read your information. Also, it will be on the city website. And with that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Second. We got to hold it?
There's another cow.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh,
Sorry. I'm sorry, Jason.
Item number 4.
Yep.
What is he would probably prefer?
So item number 4, Jason, please. And I apologize.
I almost said something before sorry.
Yeah. Got ahead of myself. Oh, wow. We were moving along so well. Sorry.
Is this a presentation that's going to be added to the website online for constituents to see? I had talked with Lisa about this. We need to be careful handing out presentations where we're discussing them in open session, yet none of the constituents are able to see it. So I just wanted to point that out again.
Well, I mean, we can post it on city website.
Yep, that's
So,
all that I ask.
Yep.
All right. Can everybody hear me? All right. The mayor asked me to put together a little development presentation tonight. We're going to just call it workshop number 1. I would envision there's probably going to be some additional information to follow regarding different pieces of information, just to kind of help with background information, processes, things. I know you're probably all at a little different level about exposure development, what happens, how it works, what's the process, procedures, and that type of thing. So you get me tonight. I'm going to kick this off. I may not be around for other workshops, but I just want to kind of break the ice a little bit here and kind of get this out and talk a little bit about it. I think we can all agree development's probably very important to the city. It's very important to most communities going forward. So again, I just envision this to be kind of an open discussion. I got a presentation tonight. I'll try and get you guys out of here before midnight, but it depends on how excited you are and how many questions you ask. So without further ado, I'll get rolling. I did bring a handout. It does say December 19th on. Obviously, I was ready for this presentation a little earlier, but here we are tonight. So I'll roll through this, and like I say, if you have questions, let me know. So I just want to start a little bit with my background. So why me? Why am I talking about this tonight? And so I got about 25 years in development experience. I've been on both sides of the ledger. I've worked for developers who I've done engineering projects. I've done permitting. I've been through the processes. I've worked with communities all over Wisconsin, as big as Madison and Milwaukee. I've got projects done, approved. I've done development review, much like I do for you guys when projects come in. I also do it for a lot of other communities. I am part of American Families Development in Madison. I'm their plan review chair, committee chairperson. So again, I kind of lead their review and approval process there. So again, just a little background on my work. I've done everything from large commercial projects. That's kind of what I specialize in when I'm not here tonight. I'm usually doing big 50-acre developments, hospital properties, that type of thing. So working on just very large, expensive type projects where I'm doing a lot of the coordination with permitting and site utilities and parking and traffic circulation, that kind of stuff. So again, just a little bit of maybe the piece of me you don't see. So that's kind of my background. So kind of getting on to the next slide here. So I want to talk a little bit about, as we move forward here, I'm going to grab my glasses. Should have typed that larger. Impact to the levy. So again, I'm not going to get into like a lot of detail in this, but just kind of a high overview. So again, as a reminder, those of you who know this or may not know this, a municipality is allowed to increase their levy over the amount it is levied the prior year by the percentage increase in its equalized value from net new construction. Okay, so that's important. So all new development, all new construction, that really drives the levy. So if no new construction occurs in your community, then you're allowed that 0%. So think about that for a minute. If inflation exceeds the net new construction and you don't have any, well, then obviously you're working backwards. And that's important when we start talking about what we can provide for services and all of that other stuff. So you guys probably all very familiar with that. So I'm going to flip up a slide here. So did a little homework on you guys. I did not know this, so this was a surprise to me. So net new construction values in the city of Columbus averaged about 1.82% from 2017 to the current. More recent times, in the last 3 years, it's 0.85%. So again, you can see it's very low or very flat, if you will. Kind of compare that again back to inflation, and we all know what's happened lately with inflation. It's the first story on the evening news, and it's obviously really a very high number. It has been driven very high in the last few years. So you can kind of see where your delta is already starting to shrink because your net new construction is so low here in the recent years. So I just took a stab and I threw some numbers on here just to kind of look at what these numbers would really mean if we project them out. So if we look at the bottom line, which is the kind of tan line here on this chart, and I project that out over 10 years, you can see the levy increases at a very shallow rate. And currently you're at 3.7 million. You'd end up at about 4.1 over a 10-year period if we continue on the same trajectory we're on. If we take the net average, that 1.82, that's the blue line. So you can see now you're starting to creep up a little higher. And we take just an average growth rate of 3%. You can see that's the orange line, and you can see just by compounding a percent or two how much that means. The green or the gray line or the top line is 4%. So the difference between kind of where you've been the last couple years and then the 4% is about $1.4 million over the next 10 years in new growth. So again, 4%, when you think about 4% growth, that's not a big number. It's certainly achievable, but it is something just to kind of keep your eye on is how much this compounds when you project out. So again, probably not telling you guys anything you don't know.
And not to interrupt, but if you go even further back, our numbers don't look any better. Like, we have been on this path for over a decade, not just the last 5 years. So
Yeah.
we have been not moving forward for a lot longer than 5 years.
Yeah, you're very close to the bottom line, more so than the top line here on this graph. So thank you, Ian. So let's talk a little bit about impact to community. So what does that mean? So, I just threw some things up here just as thoughts, just to make sure everybody's thinking about. So city services, right? Everybody wants services. Nobody wants to pay taxes. You have to fund them somehow. We don't have a money tree. We just don't go down in the basement of City Hall and come up with a briefcase of money. So we talk about water. Everybody wants clean, reliable water. You hear a lot of stuff in the news about water, PFAS, you hear lead, there's all kinds of things out there. Those things are very expensive to treat, very expensive upgrades to plants. New wells need to be drilled in a lot of cases. That continues to kind of evolve, but there's a lot of costs there. Those impact rates, but there's other things that impact your services. New businesses will generate new fire flow needs, generate new storage needs. There's new water tanks, new water towers, all something that development will generate, but also things that, with incoming money can offset those costs. Public Works, I sit up here and we talk a lot about streets. The public talks a lot about streets. Again, those are impacts. If we're not getting that revenue coming in, we're not seeing that development, it's much harder, as you guys know, to find ways to fund those roads, to fund those stormwater projects. We know we have a huge need. We have studies, we have capital plans, but that's where that levy, that new development, that revenue comes from. Electric, new distribution, upgraded distribution, lots of costs there. Again, having that revenue helps offset that. And then I threw others in there. We can go on and on. Parks, EMS, fire, police, those are all needs that the community are impacted by lack of development. So let's talk about developable land in Columbus. I look at the maps a lot. I deal with this a lot. I've been here a long time. So, I kind of have an idea of what this looks like, and I'm not so sure everybody has a visual of it. But I'm going to throw a few numbers out there, and then I'm going to flip to a slide, and we're going to look at the GPS here kind of on the fly. So I just looked quickly and just started clicking and adding up. I found 121 parcels in the city that are vacant that could be developed. When I say vacant in the city, that's in the city limits. That could be agricultural, farm fields, land that's not being used. Maybe it's underutilized. Maybe there's a single resident on a very large tract of land or something. But there's 121 parcels. It's 1,058 acres. It's a lot of land out there yet, and that's within the city limits. That's not annexing or expanding out beyond our current boundaries. What's wrong with that? Well, there's some issues. So land, wetlands, there's floodplains out there, there's shoreline zoning, there's highway access, there's availability to utilities. There's all kinds of reasons some of this land hasn't developed, but it's not that it's not developable, okay? It's just a little bit more difficult, right? It's not the low-hanging fruit. People haven't picked it off yet. So I'm going to flip to the GIS here quick, if I may, and I'll show you up on screen. All the highlighted parcels in yellow that you see on this screen as I kind of pan around are all these parcels that I've been talking about. So you can kind of see, starting on the north side of the city, Highway 16 access towards Fall River. You can see there's several large tracts up there. As we kind of pan down and follow the corridor for the highway, you can kind of continue to see they're kind of scattered around. Some of these have maybe some development plans, maybe some don't. These hatched areas that you see are floodplain. So again, when we start talking about the impacts to these parcels, why don't we develop them? You can see that obviously there's many low areas in and around the city on these parcels that are in floodplain. So you would ask, well, Jason, why are you talking about these parcels then? A lot of these parcels, if they're not in a floodway, you can fill a floodplain and you can build, you just need to permit it. So it's just another step of the process, but it's doable. So you can kind of continue to see as I pan here, some of the vacant land out by the hospital towards 151 on Highway 73. You can kind of see some very large tracts that probably is your prime undeveloped land. As you kind of pan around the south side of the city over towards the golf courses, you can see there's a kind of an area highlighted in blue. I wanted to spend a minute talking about that. That's land in and around the Kestrel Ridge Golf Course that was originally planned for development. When the floodplain was remapped in 2016, that became all floodplain. And I think the common belief is that you can't ever develop that land. Well, sure you can. You have to fill it, but it's developable, right? And so the plan is just a little harder. And when I say fill it, you know, maybe on average you need a foot of fill to bring that land out of the floodplain. Sure, it's a lot of fill and it costs a lot of money, but you know, it is land that ultimately at some point I would foresee, whether that's in my time or somebody else's, land will become more increasingly valuable, and that will then become land that could be developed. It'll pay to do that. And we'll talk about land costs and development costs in a little bit as we kind of go on. Most of the downtown and the central area is fairly developed, so there isn't a lot of opportunity to be there. But again, I just wanted to kind of pan around and show you guys a little bit about what that land looks like, how many parcels there are, kind of how it's impacted by the different areas around the city. So any questions on that, just as a visual? Thought it'd be easier than just showing you a high-level map to kind of show you in the GIS. Okay, well, let's flip back to the presentation. So again, that's your 121 parcels, and those are all of the parcels that I picked out. There's probably others that I missed, but I just wanted to hit the high points. So what's the process? So I want to kind of cover the process because, like I say, I do a lot of this outside of Columbus. I go through this process. And so really, it really starts with identifying the project. To kick off meetings, the developer comes in, talks to the city team. We have a team here. We meet every 2 weeks on a Friday. We have people occasionally come in. We start talking about these issues. Why this parcel? How can it be developed? What's out there? Are there utilities present? Are they sized right? What's the highway access? We start talking about it. Does it need a subdivision plat? Does it need a CSM? There's a lot of discussion that the developer needs to know up front because this all means money to them. And money, when it comes to development, is important. Usually there's always a concept plan, right? We need to know, like, what do they want to do? Are they trying to turn this into so many lots? Are they thinking about stormwater? Are they thinking about parkland? Are they thinking about those other requirements that they have to do? A lot of developers will come in without a concept plan, and they'll say, well, I want to develop this parcel. And it's like, well, that's great, but you know, let us help you by giving us some additional information, and then we can kind of formulate a plan together. It's working together with the developers. And usually they'll balk at that a little bit and say, well, I don't want to spend any money on a concept plan unless I know you're going to support me. And it's like, well, we are. Just trust us. You got to get your team together and come back. typically there's the development agreement. The city needs to have some reliable way of knowing that this development's going to occur and the city's going to get what they're promised, right? They're going to put in infrastructure, they're going to put in sewer, they're going to put in water, they're going to put in roads, they're going to put in stormwater, they're going to give it to you guys when they're done with it. That becomes your equalized value of your city. And so once they pay for that and they dedicate it back over to you, you're going to want to make sure it's done to city standards. You're going to want to make sure that somebody's out there paying attention to this. And it's done right, because it's got to last 40, 50, 100 years. And so those are things that you want, and that's really kind of the project agreement or the development agreement, which outlines the project, the fees, the dedications, those type of things. Paul's really good at writing them, by the way. Then what's the process? Kind of going further on, plan commissions, council approvals. So those agreements come in, those land divisions come in. We see things, all kinds of different ways to make projects work. We can get away from the traditional zoning by doing planned unit developments. We can look at different ways we can work with the developer, and those things all need approval, right? Because they're all different than the normal or the standard. It's, sometimes we need to be creative on how we look at mixed use, different things. Then there's the final plans and specifications. Obviously, I talked about the concept, but then the developers need to get in here and they need to get those things approved by us, right? So we review them. We say, yes, this meets all of our standards. We approve this. Get into construction meetings, reviewing construction. We got to make sure that somebody's out there paying attention again. And then obviously I talked about the city acceptance and warranty periods. Those are all things that are required of the developers. So let's talk permits. This is not easy, right? DNR, the DNR gets a kick at the can here. DNR always wants to see your erosion control, your Chapter 30 stormwater, your water extension, your sanitary sewer permit. At a minimum, you're into the DNR for 4 permits. So everything you do has to be approved by the city. It also has to be approved by DNR. If you're anywhere near waters of the state or wetland, now all of a sudden you got the Army Corps at the federal level involved. If it's an individual Chapter 30 permit, you're looking anywhere from 3 to 9 to 12 months for a permit approval. So again, as these developers are thinking about developing a property, these are things that hold them back, right? It really boils down to time and money for a developer. State of Wisconsin, DOT, highway access permits, plumbing plans if you're doing commercial development, county permits, shoreline zoning, access to county highways, stormwater. A lot of times counties will control stormwater, municipalities don't. Really kind of have to figure that out up front. We control our own stormwater, but a lot of times the counties will get involved. And then us, working in right-of-way, city utility approval letter, sanitary connections. I threw this up here. It may be hard to read. Maybe it's more readable on your slide I handed out. This is a list of the directory I have for the city of permits for you guys. Now, not everything applies to development, but I just snapshotted this the other day and I was like, you guys got a lot of permits that got to be filled out for stuff too, right? Site plan approvals and working right-of-ways and conditional uses and CSMs and CUPs and PUDs and sewer lateral extensions and main taps, sign permits, zoning, whatever, if there's amendments or anything that needs to happen. A lot goes into this. So we have to do our due diligence if I'm the developer's engineer to make sure we understand all of these, because we have to make sure that we have all the materials available, because there's checklists for all of these, what information is required. They all have a timeline. They all have a fee associated with them. I think I covered that one already for the approvals. So let's talk about the time. So a small project, a simple project, if it's a single site, maybe a small subdivision, you might be talking several months from start to finish. Obviously, there's a lot going on there, but if they're pretty straightforward, those aren't too difficult to design. You can get through them relatively quickly. Large, complex projects, several years. I got one right now. I'm in my 3rd year of a large project in Madison, and we're just breaking ground 3 years in. So, we went through unbelievable amount of effort with the city to get everything approved and everything together. So obviously time is something that's sensitive to developers, but it's largely dependent on developers' team. I've seen these projects where the developer may not have everybody on the same page on their team, and that slows the process down. They're happy to point out it's always the municipality slowing them down, but a lot of times they're slowing themselves down. Ordinances, municipal review processes, you guys only meet so often. Planning Commission meets once a month. The council meets for approvals. A lot of those take 30 days notice. Certain notifications or publications are required for certain things. So again, once you start looking at, doing certain approvals and having to rezone and all kinds of things, those things just kind of drag out over time. So they also affect the process. So I'm going to think like a developer, right? So I've been around enough of them. I have some friends that are developers. They can be friendly. But what you'll always find is the developer's approach comes down to a couple things. One is money. I mean, if they're not going to make money on a project, they're not going to develop. So I can guarantee you that. The other is the schedule. They need it now because interest rates change, the economy changes, things change. Developers fear getting invested into a project that drags out for 2 or 3 years, and then all of a sudden the numbers are different. The pro forma is not working. And so as quickly as they can get through processes, they like to do that. And that's really based on how easy the process is. They'll look for communities that have easy processes, communities that they can get things done or approved quickly, people that are willing to welcome them and not give them grief, and they want to then be in that community because they know they can turn that around. So those are really, it's no secret, those are the things that drive developers. They will always tell you that they don't make money on a project. Don't believe them, because if they didn't, they wouldn't be doing it. They'll always tell you it's easier in another community. Don't believe them, because it never is. It's just always the grass is greener thing. And they'll always ask for as much as they can get. They're not afraid to ask for everything or more, for you to supplement, for you to hand out, for you to give whatever you can. They will. And there's nothing wrong with that. But just understand that that's their methodology. That's how they think. That's how they get work done. So what does it cost to them? So let's throw some numbers out there. They have a development agreement. They have legal costs, so they have a lawyer, an attorney. They have development agreements. They have land divisions, easements, sales agreements. They have all kinds of things here that they're going to pay for on their end to make this project even happen to get off the ground. They have to hire their own engineer, their surveyor. They also then pay, like, for example, for Columbus. If I'm reviewing all their plans, you guys are generally in the developer agreement billing them back for my time. So they're paying for 2 engineers. Now, if you've ever been around developers, they don't like that much. So, but I always inform them that the better job you do, the less time I spend, you get billed for. But there is a cost to them that gets billed back typically. And then obviously land costs that they have to negotiate. So I wanted to throw out a couple examples here just to kind of put it into perspective. And let's talk about the project, construction costs. So typically right now today, new construction will run you from $350 to $500 a foot for a new roadway. So if you start looking at 1,000 feet of roadway, you're into it for $500,000 right off the top. That doesn't include any of the other costs we've just been talking about for permitting and engineering and legal or land costs or anything. They're into it for $500,000. Throw in stormwater, right? Stormwater is a big thing. We have a lot of requirements now. We're being more restrictive than we have been. We need volume control, quality control, infiltration, oil gauge, thermal control, all these things that we require now. Even if you figure $1 a cubic foot for construction, you take a 1 acre pond 5 feet deep, you're $225,000. So, you can start to see where these numbers get really big for developers pretty quick. And that's really what turns them off or drives them away. Add in parks. So dedication land, we got to give them land, or they got to give us land if per the ordinance, or they got to pay a fee in lieu of. So now here's another cost you layer on top of all those other costs. Other fees, I just threw in some things here. Impact fees, I know Columbus don't have those, but we typically run into communities that have very high impact fees for new development. Those numbers can get very big very quickly. Water impact fees, park impact fees, police, fire, you see those impact fees coming in for new development. Well, and it's only fair. If they're generating the need for those services by adding more development, they should contribute to some of the costs for those new needs or services that have to be provided. Connection fees, I'll give an example here. I just had a client write a check to Madison Met Sewer District in Madison for $68,000 to hook up to sewer. It's a big number when you start talking about writing checks. So And that was just one check. Columbus sewer connection for a 4-inch water meter is $25,000. So again, we do have some pretty big fees here, given that as well. So those all get factored into that. There's special development fees, electric cost extensions. Those can range $30,000 plus if we got to get utilities out there. So I looked at another example here. So let's just talk gross land acres. Let's just say somebody's got a 30-acre piece of property they want to purchase and develop. Well, we got to figure off the top we're going to lose 10% due to undevelopable, right? That's wetlands, floodplains, setback, shoreline zoning, whatever might come up. At a minimum, we're losing 10%. And that's kind of a rule of thumb for land planners, right? So we're down to 27 acres. 30% loss is due to right-of-way. They got to dedicate the roads to us. We need 66 feet wide right-of-ways. We need stormwater easements. We need ponds, outlots, and all of a sudden they're down to 19 acres. So if you take $2 million development cost, and you got third-acre lots, if we looked at the first scenario, gross land, it's going to cost them $66,000 an acre, $22,000 a lot. That's just their development cost. But now you got to take out all that other stuff we talked about, right? The 10% and the 30%. Now they're down to $35,000 a lot. And again, it's just math, right? So you look at what you can sell a vacant lot for that's ready, and now you're looking at, assuming $2 million is probably an average going rate, now you're down to the developers into this for $35,000 or more per lot. So now they have to obviously sell that vacant lot to a builder for that to make their profit back. So again, these were the numbers really kind of come into play, and every developer is running this math and those pro formas to see how that kind of pans out. So anyways, don't want to keep you here till midnight, but I wanted to kind of hit that and get you thinking a little bit, get some discussion going, just kind of recognize kind of where Columbus is at and what we have kind of in front of us. I know there's kind of a lot of development kind of poised here, but just I wanted to throw that out there, see if there's any questions, thoughts.
I appreciate that. I think it is something very important for alders to understand, and I think this should be a larger portion of alders' orientation, because I don't think this is something that, like you say, all of you guys know this, I don't think this is something that a lot of alders really understand. So it's very important. Thank you.
If you could forward over the presentation to David?
Absolutely.
Post it on the website.
I'd be happy to do that.
Any other questions for Jason? All right. Thanks, Jay.
Thanks for
Appreciate
having
it.
me.
Now with that, we'd look for a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion by Alder Finkler and a second by Alder Motif to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned from the regular meeting.
Does anybody need a break before we roll into the next one? No. Nope.
Let's do it.
Okay.
Go quick. You need to go? No. Oh, okay. Okay, gotcha. Sorry.
Okay. So, welcome to the City of Columbus Committee of the Whole special meeting. It is Wednesday, December 27th, 7:35 p.m. And if I could please have a roll call.
Finkler.
Here.
Gray.
Present.
Hammer.
Here.
Moda.
Present.
Reed. Here. Relke.
Present.
Steiner.
Here.
I acknowledge this meeting was posted and noticed according to law.
Thank you. And if I could take a motion to approve the agenda tonight?
I'll move to approve the agenda.
Steiner, second.
Thank you. I have a motion from Alder Finkler and a second from Alder Steiner to approve tonight's agenda. Any discussion? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Are there any citizen comments at this time? Okay. The first and only item on the agenda is to discuss the recreation assistant job description. And you should all have a copy of that attached to your agenda. And
Amy Jo and Stephanie are here if
Okay.
there's any questions.
Okay, so we do have Amy, Joe, and Stephanie here. If there's any questions, Alder Finkler?
Yeah, just a reminder, what was approved in the budget? I know we just approved an amount in the budget, so I'm curious. If anybody remembers?
I think it was about 56,000.
56,000? So this is for $51,417.60 a year. Is there a reason why it's under what was approved in the budget?
So, with my, talking with the city administrator, Lisa Wilson at the time, the amount that was budgeted, so the position is created. And then with the position being created, you know, she looked at, pulled up the various wage schedules of other employees throughout the city. And this, the wage that she came up is what she felt was a fair wage range for that position. So, yeah, the money was in there in the budget. But that, again, that's part of the administrator's job, is to look through things and pull out what they think is a fair wage, along with discussion with Amy Jo and then with Stephanie, so.
Okay.
Alder Motive?
I have a couple of questions or points I'd like clarification on. First of all, I understand that this was in the budget, but the pay is more than some of our department heads make. How do we justify paying this much when we have other skilled long-term city employees making less money? I have a real question about that.
Can I come up?
Mm-hmm.
Hello. So this position
You want
is-
to get the
yeah.
mic?
Oh, it's not on?
No.
My apologies.
There.
Hello, okay. So this position is for the Recreation and Aquatics Manager position. Our current aquatics manager, the roles that he's taking on and has taken on the last 7 years have included a lot of roles that DPW would do to open up the pool, like acid wash, put in the ladders, and just open the pool in general. And that is a large undertaking. The aquatic manager is in charge of swim team. The aquatic manager is in charge of 50-some people. And for the past 7 years, the budgeted amount for that position alone was $22,575. It's always been at a higher rate even than my salary the past 7 years.
So how are we justifying almost doubling that? And here's some other things that I have to add to that I'm looking for the justification on. Your average overtime is only 3 hours a week.
Mine?
You only average 43 hours per week
That's
is the
incorrect.
information that I got. And if that's
incorrect.
true, and we are adding on to a position that's already there, how do you justify that being enough to fill that time?
Where did you get those hours from, I ask? I have close to 300 flex hours a year that I put in. So I'm definitely more than 3 hours a week for overtime.
Okay. My other question is, why is this a combined job description? I mean, we already have an aquatic director. This has to go out to a public listing.
Correct.
And we have to hire the best candidate. If you find another candidate who's better in the interview, are we going to have 2 aquatic directors, or are you going to fire Kane?
The goal that I had asked is that we could promote Kane into the assistant manager's position.
That's not how the policy works, though.
I
It has
understand
to
that.
be put out into public, and we cannot write a position.
We have to post it for the 2 weeks, and we need to apply.
Please let me finish what I was saying. We cannot write a job description for a person. We have
know
to
that.
write a job description for the needs. And so I'm questioning this job description, and I question the pay. I can't support this right now.
So the way this was the job description for 7 months, the recreation assistant would support me in my role of all of the venues that I do, the city events, the recreation programming, the outside sports, the contracting, and all those types of things that I do alone.
And you can
Currently.
keep them busy full-time?
Yes, I can. I really don't think that council has an understanding of everything that I do. I do a lot more than I think council's aware of. And then this person would roll
Don't tell me what
over-
I'm aware of and what I'm not.
I'm trying to explain the job description
There's
and why
no
we're
need to be rude
justifying.
to Amy Jo.
I just need to know that you're going to be able to keep them busy. And I also want to make sure you understand that we cannot tailor this to Kane as you're wanting to
Okay.
do. We need to separate these. You can keep Kane on staff to be the aquatic director, and then he can apply for the clerical part.
We do have a number of other people who are wanting to
I'm
ask
sorry.
questions as well. Alder Steiner, I saw you first.
Well, first thing is, we agreed to this position to be a rec assistant and aquatics director. That was back in, I believe, October when we brought it up. The problem I'm having now is now we're going to have to start applying for the aquatics director as a seasonal position, which it should have been filled by now. This should have came to us probably at least a month and a half ago. This should have been done before we did any kind of budget season at all, before we published it. If there was an issue with pay, it should have been done before that. I don't know why it sat there. I'm not going to sit here and speculate. It's over and done with. However, Kane does put in a lot of work, and yes, we can't make a position for a specific person, but there's no guarantee that he's still going to want it after this time either. We still need somebody to fill that position. And as far as the pay goes, there's a lot that's probably underpaid right now. We have a financial study that probably wasn't utilized the best it should have been. We've heard about this after the fact. We don't know everything about everything, but that's something we can address later on, something we can look at later on. But we're creating a new position. Let's not reinvent the wheel every time something new comes up. Let's make a better position and adjust everything as it goes on. It's already there. What Amy Jo does is a massive amount. She barely takes vacation. When she's on vacation, she's always got her phone. She's always available for everyone. She's putting in more time than I see anybody else doing. Not that I'm following everyone. I can't say that she works harder or less hard than anyone else, but I know she puts in a lot of effort towards this. Her position is kind of thrown around this entire time she's worked here. Because when she first started, she was, aquatics director and rec. And then she became rec director, and then she became park and rec. It's like she doesn't have a clear position herself, but she takes on all these roles. She takes care of the venues. That wasn't really part of her position. She takes care of the pool. Wasn't always part of her position. Became Kane's position, became a seasonal position. And the other thing we have to consider is a seasonal aquatics manager is near impossible to fill. It's one of those things that nobody's really going to give up 8 months of their year to do this and then be off for the next 4. It's a day-to-day job. It's a lot. Kane takes on more than he should. That's a different contention I have, but at the same time, this is one of those positions that it requires a massive amount of work, and it starts basically next month. There's a lot of people he's managing as opposed to a lot of other departments that are managing, 5 to 10 people. He's going to be managing everyone that works at that, all seasonal help. He's going to be doing other jobs during the summer, not just aquatics, because he will be a rec assistant as well. They're going to, calm down for rec assistant during the summer because Kane will be running the pool, but there's still a give and take there that they're both going to work on these facilities. And there's a lot of facilities in the community that we have to work on. I'm okay with the position that's presented here. I'd like to move this along. I'd like to pay a little bit higher, but if we want to set it at this rate, we'll see what Kane's qualified. And he is massively overqualified and wants to grow with the city. That's an ace in the hole I don't want to let go of. I don't want to let go of Amy Jo and burn her out by saying, you just got to hold on a little bit longer here and do everything yourself. Because I don't know how she puts up with it, honestly. And I'm glad that she does. But this should be done. We should get it done. I don't see any reason why we can't push this along.
Alder Gray.
Alder Steiner said just about everything I wanted to say, honestly. I've been on council for what's it been, like 6, 7, it's been a long time. I've worked directly with Amy Jo more than just about any other city employee. I've been on rec, I've been on aquatics, on HLPC, on beautification. I have worked with Amy Jo a lot. And just those meetings alone that I meet with Amy Jo on a monthly basis is several hours just in those meetings. I know that she works a lot more than 40, 43 hours a week. I know she works very, very hard, and I know that she could definitely use an assistant. And I know this firsthand, working directly with Amy Jo for quite some time. I also know that we probably should look at her position, her job description, and her pay as well. Because it has changed so many times over the years. And honestly, it has largely changed because of Amy Jo. She takes on more without being asked to take on more. She creates more work for herself. And it is a betterment for our entire community. So I don't want to ever make you feel like you're not working hard. And I appreciate you. I am fine with moving this forward. I'm done.
Alder Reed?
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I don't have much to say over what Steiner and Gray has provided. I think this is extremely reasonable, what we're offering. I feel extremely comfortable writing it for an ideal individual, and I think we're lucky that we have a probable candidate. We've done so many different position descriptions, and every time you're writing it to who you think it might possibly be. Usually you don't have no one as an individual in mind, but we've changed several different position descriptions based on the applications that came back, because we realized that we might not get the combined skill levels. So I think this is great for our current position that we're in, and I feel really fortunate.
Alder Finkler?
I would just like to say that I don't know where the 43 hours came from in the attack on Amy Jo, but I'm sorry, Amy Jo, I appreciate you, and I know everybody in this community appreciates you. And I think everybody on this council should appreciate you too, because not only have you worked without vacation, is you also bring revenue into this city. And I think everybody is forgetting that fact. We heard during budget season that the revenue that we're bringing in and what Amy Jo manages on her free time, on her own time, is bringing in revenue to this city. There's many ways we can show appreciation, and beating her up every single time she comes up in front of that podium is not one of the ways. It is disgusting, and I feel for you, and it is just, it's wrong. I think we should be approving this for what we approved it during the budget season. And I also think that Amy Jo should be getting a raise, because somebody that does that much work and doesn't even make $24.72 an hour was asked on here, just, we're going to lose her. Between the mental beating up that she gets that we just saw tonight and this pay, I'm telling you, she could go be a CNA and make more money and not have to worry about getting beat up like this.
Mayor Hammer?
So again, the position is in front of you, and this was a position that was worked on by Amy Jo and Lisa Wilson, and so this is obviously, we need to move this forward. Lisa's opinions to me before she left was that it is obvious that this position, there's plenty of work to do there. So, that should not even be an issue. Again, the wage range, I'm going off of the information that I was given by City Hall staff as to how it fit in amongst other positions throughout the city. So that's how the amount had come up. So, yeah.
We shouldn't be bringing down new people. We should be bringing everybody up.
Go ahead, Amy Jo.
I've composed myself, thank you. So at the time that the salary was approved by council, it was at a higher wage than what I make. And Lisa did not feel appropriate that if a certain person had applied for this job, that a subordinate should make more than a director. And my rebuttal to that fact was that I have total trust in the aquatic manager, that I could go on vacation and know that the chemicals are being tested, the staff is taken care of, and the community is safe. So for that reason, I was okay with that. I was okay with my subordinate making more money than me because 17 years dedicated to the city, and he wants to grow, he wants to build a career.
My only issue with that is that we're talking about a specific person, where this is a position.
Correct.
Right.
I would say the same even if it was somebody who had applied that I didn't know that
But
the qualifications would be a little bit higher.
Equal opportunity employer, you can't have a subordinate making more than
Right.
a department head. That's where I am coming from on that.
So what entitles a subordinate? Just somebody who reports directly to me, or?
People you supervise.
Well, you're the department head, correct?
I am.
So he would be a subordinate, correct?
Wouldn't he only be a subordinate as rec assistant, not aquatics director?
Correct. Well, no.
And the rec assistant?
No, because
He
she
still
looks.
reports to me as the
yeah.
aquatics manager.
The way the job description is written, he
Yeah.
reports to her
He
for
reports
both.
to her.
Can I say something, please? Molly, you misinterpreted that I was attacking Amy, and I didn't appreciate that. Amy, I do appreciate the work you do, and you do a good job. However, I had questions, okay? And I want to make sure that we are filling it appropriately, and we are honoring that this is a position. It is not being made for a person. And all I've heard is we're hiring Kane, we're hiring Kane, we're hiring Kane.
I think that Kane is the best candidate if he should apply.
If he should apply, but others may apply too, and if somebody who applies who is better, and I'm not saying it's going to happen, we need to make sure that we are looking at all candidates.
Oh, I know that.
Alder Finkler?
So we've had this conversation a couple times up on council about trying to bring on new staff and them not making as much money as the person that they report to. And our conversations have gone different. Our conversations have gone, we should increase the department head or the person that's being reported to. And this conversation's happening different. And I just would like to point that out. And it's very frustrating that we are going to bring somebody down instead of bringing somebody up. To me, that is just horrible on so many levels.
Alder Gray?
And unfair. We want to talk about equal opportunity. It's unfair. If we're not having the same conversation for every single person, that's unfair. I want Amy Jo to get a raise and this person to be hired. That's what we have discussed in every other instance that this has occurred.
Alder Gray?
And, I mean, to be honest, I do actually agree with Alder Finkler on this occasion. I do believe that Amy Jo's job description and Amy Jo's actual day-to-day job are two different things. I believe her salary is fair for her job description, but she does a lot more than her job description, and that's the issue. So I think she gets overlooked easily because her job description may not merit a lot more than what she's paid, but her actual job and what she does merit more than what she's actually paid.
But that's not what's on the agenda.
And I know, and I am getting off topic, and I'm sorry, but it's...
Could we add it to another agenda? Because I don't disagree with you, but I'd like to stay on agenda.
But what I'm getting to, Alder Motive, it's still my floor, is that we should not be lowering the salary just because Amy Jo's salary is something. We should hire it for what that job entails, and we should also be looking at Amy Jo's salary. It should be two separate topics. It shouldn't be one and the same. If this is the going rate, and this is what staff says is the going rate, then I'm fine with that. Maybe the initial was just a ballpark and this is a more exact, that's fine with me. But if we're only hiring or seeking an employee for this amount to keep it below Amy Jo, I'm not okay with that. and we need to look at Amy Jo's salary separately from this. That was my point.
Mayor Hammer?
Okay, so again, the salary range was looked at what had been approved, if correct me if I'm wrong, Stephanie, with the other pay rate ranges of other employees after we had approved all of that back last meeting or whatever meeting it was. So that's where that came into place by looking at various people throughout the city and their pay schedule. So that's how Lisa Wilson came up with that wage scale. It's, I think we all agree that we need to improve on, but this strictly is the agenda item for tonight, is to forward the position, and we can definitely move forward from there. We're not paying down. I mean, you may think that we are, but we're not paying down. It was looked at by the person who we hired for, to do her job, which she did, and this was her recommendation. So.
Alder Moda?
I do agree that we need to review Amy Jo, but we need to do it separately. I would like to say I have an issue, though, that we are making this position, we're paying it more than 2 of our police officers. I mean, we just went through that and said we want our public safety to be top importance. It's getting paid more than some of our long-term skilled department heads. And I don't understand a justification as to why this position, which is partly administrative, should be paid more than some of our long-term department heads. I have a problem with that. And it's also why I think that it should be separated. I understand all the certifications that Kay needs to get. I had to go through this. I personally had to go through this when I had to do lifeguard safety and food service safety for the Bible camp that I ran last summer. So I know what it takes. And I'm not saying he doesn't have skills. I just don't think that it's on par with what we've been doing, because we haven't raised all those other jobs the way we should in their pay.
Alder Finkler?
I've heard a couple times now tonight that you mentioned, Mayor Hammer, that Lisa used statistics from our other city employees and their pay to determine the pay for this position. As somebody that is part of a hiring process for many positions, that's not the best practice. The best practice is taking the job description to out in the outside world, because we don't have 2 recreation aquatic assistants or 5 or 10 of them in the city. So you cannot compare this position to the other city employees and what they make. Every position needs to be scaled to that position and that job duties in other cities. So I question the approach that was taken for that, and I just worry that if we're comparing it to our city employees that we already have determined as underpaid, we're downpaying this new person, and it doesn't just seem that way. We are. And I don't think that's fair to this person, and we need to start doing better.
Alder Gray?
So I think we have probably discussed this about as much as we can tonight. Per ordinance, since it was on the committee of the whole, it will move to the next city council meeting. I think all of us should go home and reflect if this is the wage that we feel is correct. Maybe do some research on what aquatic directors and things get paid elsewhere. Whatever you feel the need to do, but this will be back on our next regularly scheduled meeting, and I think that's what needs to happen. I would also personally like to bring Amy Jo specifically back to the next committee of the whole for a closed session discussion for her job description and pay.
Mayor Hammer.
Stephanie, can you shed any further light? Okay, all right. You know, I know that was part of Lisa's process. I'm not going to say that she didn't do any other further research out there. But again, this is what the administrator of the time had brought forward as a recommendation, so.
Matt, is it something that you or Stephanie or someone can provide us with background information from other cities? I mean, one of the things that I was told as well was that the rest of the staff at the pool is way underpaid, which is part of the reason they're having problems keeping it filled with employees.
Just to chime in on day two, of taking all this in. I think David's getting it for you.
Otherwise, it's the fifth of the 3 lines.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's on. All right. Sorry, I'll figure it out. It's clear that we've got to take a look at employee recruitment, retention, and wages across the board. I know that that there's been a report and that there's been little done with that. That's clearly going to have to be a priority moving forward. Secondly, although I appreciate your willingness to do the research, we can easily, I have 30 years of Parks and Recreation experience, and I know Amy Jo has her fingertips on resources to get that information, and our the State Park and Rec Association does a really good job of calculating that, both at the seasonal year lifeguard wages as well as equivalent positions for Amy Jo as well as the proposed position tonight. So that's easily something we can have prepared for the next meeting.
Thank you.
Any further concerns, questions, or comments?
I just had one quick thing. Was there anything specific, so we don't stall this anymore next one so Amy Jo can get some help? Is there anything specific in this position description that anybody didn't agree with? I know we've talked about the wage the whole time, but I want to make sure that any feedback is given to Amy Jo on the description too.
I had one question on the description. It says school programs.
I work with the school.
Okay, so he
Or she or I work with the schools.
Okay. And that's different than the after-school summer programs? I'm sorry, I'm not sure
It
which.
is different, yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions? Concerns about the job description? Okay. In that case, I will take a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion from Alder Finkler and a second from Alder Gray. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We are adjourned.